Paul Felder and Michael Bisping discussed Israel Adesanya's prospects in the sport on the Believe You Me podcast. Without holding back, Bisping stated that he thinks Izzy ought to retire, highlighting the fact that he has already lost 4 of his previous 5 bouts. He acknowledged his amazing history but contended that he has nothing more to prove at this time, in addition to stressing that Adesanya has earned more than enough money and doesn't need to continue putting himself through this. Bisping referred to him as the second greatest middleweight of all time, behind Anderson Silva. Felder used a different tack, stating that if Izzy continues to fight, he will need to start facing lower-ranked opponents rather than immediately returning to title battles. Felder simply does not see that happening given everything Izzy has already achieved. Whether he walks away or has one more run left in him is the topic at hand. Perhaps become the last guy to defeat the current 205 champion by moving up to light heavyweight. Pereira. Alex, is Izzy a contender for light heavyweight? What are your thoughts? Comment below.
Kimev will be next, but the real question is, do we think Israel Adesanya should retire? I say yes. I think it's time. I mean, look, listen, would I watch him fight again? Of course I would. Has he taken a tremendous amount of damage? No, he hasn't. You know, he's not going to be like me sitting here in pain all the time and boring everyone on the podcast. He hasn't taken much damage. He's lost 4 out of his last 5 now, which is a crazy start. He's had a legendary career. He's the second best middleweight of all time. These are just the facts and the stats. I believe he was making around $3, maybe more $1 million per fight for quite some time now.
Yeah,
so he's a wealthy man. He's got loads of money in the bank. He doesn't need to do this.
Yeah, I think that he's got to make a decision. I agree. If he wants to fight and just fight the lower ranked guys and just fight to stay competitive, or even change a weight class, do something different, okay, the chances of you getting back to the top, it's not going to happen.
Dress Doopy recently expressed his thoughts about his impending rematch with Sean Strickland, saying he wants to make amends and dispel any doubts. This time, Doopy admitted that Strickland's record of 8 split decisions meant that he would inevitably face a few unfortunate outcomes, but he is happy that this fight is finally taking place and sees it as a chance to settle the dispute once and for all. DDP clarified that the only reason this rematch is taking place is because their last fight ended in a split decision, a result that he doesn't agree with. While some fans thought Strickland won that fight, Doopy is eager to move past it and correct the record. He also gave credit where credit was due, stating that Strickland is the second best middleweight behind him. Now, Drews is looking to prove himself once more, this time with a decisive victory that will allay any remaining doubts.
Now, if you play the odds like Strickland and having 8 split decisions in your career, you know, a split decision is what you call a coin flip. If you flip that coin 8 times, you're bound. That fight, the split decision was the biggest shock to me. I don't think it was a split decision. It was the biggest shock of that whole thing. But it was a great fight. It was a war. You know, if you play the odds like Strickland and having 8 split decisions in your career, you know, a split decision is what you call a coin flip. If you flip that coin 8 times, you're bound to get unlucky a couple of times. You know, he got lucky with the split decision, otherwise we wouldn't be here now. I am very happy that they made this fight. I was asking for this fight up until the Hamzat thing happened, then I would have preferred that fight, but I'm really happy this fight's happening because now I can go and say, we're going to settle this. We're going to put this to bed because, you know, all the Strickland fans that believe he won that fight.
In a recent interview with the Russian station Usha TAA, Sean Strickland, a UFC middleweight, is knocked out during a spar. Interesting details of Dennis Tulin's interactions with Sean Strickland, both within and outside of the gym, were shared. He related the account of Strickland and Maxim Gishin's crazy sparring match, in which the two threw everything at one another with malice. It was one of those sessions where either guy could have been knocked out at any time, Tulin said, adding that Strickland ended up getting laid down after being caught with a hard shot. Then Sean got to his feet, clearly angry and enraged. He was seeking retribution, not simply frustration. Determined to exact revenge on the Russian, he immediately retaliated against Maxim Gishin, but that wasn't the only intriguing aspect of the conversation. Dennis also thought back to his very first encounter with Strickland, which didn't exactly go well. Although they are now close friends, he acknowledged that their friendship started out tense when Strickland made a casual comment about his native nation and chose not to allow it go out of hand. Dennis made the decision to speak with him directly and explain why remarks like those were unacceptable. To his credit, Strickland listened and absorbed it, ultimately fostering mutual respect between them. Yes, I can now discuss this as Sean already shared it on Twitter. He is not concealing it. They went to battle while he was sparring with Maxim Guishen. In reality, they were attempting to knock each other out. Even though Sean threw a tremendous elbow and managed to land it, Max's attack was simply stronger. It dropped him after making a clean connection. For a few seconds, I observed him laying on the ground, unable to get to his feet. He began to scream and yell when he eventually stood up. He was angry and irritated, although it was a powerful punch. Anyone might be knocked out in that type of sparring, to be honest. It was crazy, although it wasn't personal to him. Sean didn't back down when he demanded his retribution after that. He was simply motivated by something. He is just a fighter like that. Moments like those don't break him. Instead, they give him the motivation to work even harder. Sean is a good man. He's a true one. Things were a little different when I first met him, but now we have a fantastic friendship. He has a tendency to talk excessively at times. He once made a negative statement about my nation, and I had to address him about it. He truly listened when I told him, man to man, why he shouldn't say things like that. He is a decent dude. Why Ilya Topuria would rather fight Makhachev than defend his featherweight title is explained. El Matador has stated unequivocally that he wants to become the greatest fighter in the world, and he thinks a super fight against Islam Makhachev, the lightweight champion of the UFC, would be the ideal way to achieve this. A victory, in his opinion, would propel him to the top of the pound-for-pound rankings. The UFC is aware that I want to pursue this, but ultimately, they make the decision because they are experienced and know how to manage the business. If they tell me that they want me to continue defending the title in the 14 division, I might do that. But if they allow me to move up to the 155 division, I will also do that. Finish the quote. Ilya also discussed who he believes should compete for the featherweight belt next, between Mahmoud Muradov and Diego Lopez. Since Moza Evloev has more UFC fights, but Diego Lopez has 8 fights, 8 decisions, and 1 by split decision, I believe he deserves it more. Why don't you put yourself in that position, finish something and do something pertinent? We are capable. Finish the quote. What do you believe the Georgian champion's performance?